Welcome back to BLOCKTV, where it's time now for Pump or Dump. It's that time of the week where we look at the dominant news narratives of the week and the week that was, see if we agree or disagree with the news agenda as it was laid forward. Do we pump it or do we dump it in favor of another? And to do that, I cannot do this without BLOCKTV's crack team of reporters. We've got Saki Hennessy, we've got Oran Spitzer, Yona Hochhauser, and of course Asher Westrop Evans. Now everybody gets a minute to make an argument for which story you're pumping and which story you're dumping as a result. And we're gonna give scores just for fun. We're gonna start today with Yona.
It's me.
Hochhauser. Just a note, this is on the day that Bitcoin crossed into the $10,000 territory after 3 months of lagging. We're here, and Yona, you're gonna dump on that?
Yeah. So I see.
Wait, your minute starts now.
I see your 10K and I dump it. Not against you, against the entire crypto sphere. I've been very consistent since 2020 started. I said here on this show, in this exact seat, that I will continuously dump the price and pump use cases. Now here I'm taking a little different approach. I'm dumping the price and I'm pumping. The Swiss regulators have now required for new AML anti-money laundering regulations that you must provide an ID for transactions more than $1,000. It's 1,000 Swiss money, but Swiss francs. But it's roughly $1,000 is like 1,200 right now. And why does that make a difference? Why am I tying that into price? Because as Bitcoin price goes up, that actually lowers the amount of Bitcoin you could send in Switzerland without having to provide that ID. Because, according to them, the Bitcoin is tied to the US price, or the price of the Swiss currency. That's why I like it. I like trading Bitcoin for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is Bitcoin in my mind. There's no Bitcoin a dollar. It's how much is a Bitcoin worth in Bitcoin world. Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin.
well said.
First of all, I'd like to start by saying that the currency in Switzerland is Swiss cheese. And just little pre-packaged, like little Velveeta strips of it.
No, I mean, look, it's an interesting story. It's definitely one of progress in the sphere. That taxation regulation issue, hugely problematic. That being said, unless you are the 14-year-old that CZ spoke to in that infamous tweet, who is crypto native, some people might need it pegged to a fiat currency for the time being, whether it be Swiss currency or the US dollar.
Now, and also, I know that you hate it when I do it, but there's an old saying that says, there is a cryptocurrency where 1 is equal to 1, and that would be, of course, 1 Doge, which is always equal to 1 Doge.
100% of the time.
So huff that.
All right, that round is over. We move now quickly.
Nobody spoke about your pump. Only about your dump. Congratulations, you win.
To Asher, who's dumping Bitcoin and pumping Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV.
Yeah.
Your minute begins now.
Now, I'm being purposefully
very controversial here.
I'm not actually anti-Bitcoin at the moment. I'm just talking from a pure headline percentage perspective. I think that we need a little more talk about BSV and BCH coming up. Why? A few reasons. One, since the start of 2020, they have gained a respective 270% for BSV and just a humble 132% for BCH compared to Bitcoin's very humble 40% gain on the year so far. Furthermore, they both have their halvings coming up a month before the Bitcoin Core network. Theirs is set for April as opposed to Bitcoin's May. So they actually have a chance to lead the trend when it comes to what we are seeing now as a potential alt season taking off across the crypto sphere at the moment. And because they have those significant halvings coming up, these coins, which are currently 4th and 5th in the world for crypto market caps as a whole, could make a big swing and a big impact that could pull up so much of the rest of the market. I think as much as many crypto maximalists would say, it's time to pump some of these coins.
Wow, all right, so hot take there. What do you guys think? Should Bitcoin be dumped for its ugly children?
Laying your cards on the table there.
Ugly children.
Should always dump something for its ugly children. But I think that, wow, that was a terrible thing to say. No, you make a good point regarding the halvings and whatnot. In terms of an alt season, it seems like they're already on the way up. Yeah. Right. Additionally, they're approaching their halvings, and this is something that we saw in September with Litecoin. as we discussed before filming, that Litecoin, they had their halving, nobody really cared, but then suddenly things started to rise. Even maybe even I don't have the numbers in front of me, but before Bitcoin started to really uptick. So it could be that these two things combined with the bull market started by Bitcoin and them riding up on those coattails and their halvings, that it could really kind of go real big.
But there is something to say about projects, especially those that are doing well, which everybody's kind of skeptical of. And so when you look at BCH, actually Joe BLOCKTV's technical analyst, we were looking at BCH for a really long time because one time I just happened to ask him about it, and his Bitcoin maximalist self was so surprised at how well BCH was doing, and that's the moment where I learned that we should actually be looking at BCH.
Absolutely.
So it's a
A
win.
bit of attention should be paid.
I'm not a maximalist in the slightest. I believe let them all fight out, let all the coins fight out for their own use cases, for their own spot in the market. And so I'm happy that BSV and BCH exist. Do I care if they die? No. May the strong survive. But if they are surviving, I think it's great. Take the classic tried and true Bitcoin formula, do little tweaks, change the block size limit, change the transaction limit size, and see if it works. And may the best man survive.
Yeah, so far, we've got 1, 4, and 5 spots all held by Bitcoin and their ugly babies, as
they shall not be known going forward. All right, some agreement throughout the ranks. Let's keep an eye on those altcoins. But as we move around, we're going to Zaki. You're not dumping anything, but you want to pump the hell out of Tron and Shatner. Go.
There you go. All right. So just a little bit of a peel, a little bit of a weight. Okay. So William Shatner, he done tweeted at Justin Sun. So that's kind of like the foundation of this entire argument that I'm building. So here's the deal: the amount of attention that Tron is getting, furthermore, Justin Sun, it's concerning to a degree. Why? Because Justin Sun is a manufactured frontman poster child for the Tron Corporation, and that is a little bit of it flies in the face of things, what cryptocurrency is meant to be, which is this kind of this free, non-corporate kind of free market asset. So every bit of attention that Tron or Justin Sun gets feeds into that fire of corporate overtaking this free idea. So anyways, can it be stopped? I don't know. William Shatner's tweeting about it, which means that probably it's already too late. But still, you should be aware.
All right, interesting.
How's that
narrative.
for a well-constructed argument?
I mean, I want to understand a point here. Is your concern William Shatner, like that it's particularly about William Shatner tweeting out about it? Like once old boomers like Shatner are getting on the case,
So
we're done?
More the latter of what you've said, which is that it's a case in point, which is that at the point where even washed up celebrities are tweeting about...
Shatner is hot right now.
Just a note, so Shatner, Tron, Justin, a bunch of crypto celebrities or executives, they're all attending the Satoshi Roundtable these days. So that's why these people are meeting. Worth noting also, I mean, Justin Sun just this weekend broke the news of the lunch that happened.
It was a dinner.
It was a dinner, right? It was a lunch that was promised, a dinner that actually happened with
the
Warren
real story
Buffett that happened despite, or state of his kidney stones notwithstanding. All right, anybody else want to take on Zaki's...
Yeah, you remember that well-made argument that I made? How about you argue with that? Remember all the points that I made
Zaki,
strategically shifted?
I love you to death, and all I can say to you is may you live long and prosper, my friend.
There we go, dropping that Star Trek knowledge. All right, we're going to finish this round off with Oran. You're deciding to dump U.S. being anti-crypto in favor of the U.S. Air Force goes strong on blockchain. Take it away.
So am I also waiting? Okay, there we go. So the U.S. is famously kind of anti-cryptocurrency. That has been the conversation for the last year, but they're not anti-blockchain, as the U.S. Air Force, in collaboration with the Department of Defense, awarded a contract to Flurry, a company that specializes in permissioned blockchain systems, to develop a blockchain-based communication system, which is quite cool. This is part of the Air Force's AFWorks, sorry, very confusing title, Technology Innovation Program. So the company's specialty here is supporting interoperability and scalability requirements for both legacy and evolving government systems. So if the conversation is usually we don't have to reinvent the wheel on these things, this company is kind of really moving into that and working that in a way. Its partnership with the Air Force is kind of its most notable to date, which is kind of interesting that the government would allot a contract to something like this. But this has been a long time in the works with them apparently, and it could be quite cool that this is what's used and that it's coming from military strategists.
Right, as we know, I mean, the Army in many parts of the world, including the United States, is on the vanguard of adopting new technologies, and if they're dealing with blockchain, it could spell big things going forward.
There was a story just a couple of months ago about France doing sort of the same thing in a military sense.
The classic through line for new and emerging technologies is military, enterprise, and then through to the home and through the casual user.
Counterpoint, porn, military, enterprise.
Okay. But we're talking
Parallel
about blockchain.
Yeah.
Porn went in for the crypto.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
But it is. I mean, it is important to think about. I mean, the U.S. Air Force particularly it's been careful with some of its growth in technologies, and up until very recently, they were still using hand cut out boards for their aircraft platforms to keep track of where all the planes were, and because they didn't have technology that was up to scale for what they needed for their massive logistics services. I mean, we talk about the power of logistics. The U.S. military machine is one of the most logistic intensive operations in the world. The fact that they're utilizing blockchain for any and all elements potentially is huge for them, and as we say, a great pipeline. If it works, yeah.
We're hoping it works here.
Good luck, yeah.
All right, so that was round one. The win goes to Yona for being extra controversial. We begin now round two. Yona, we're going to ignore your dump because you already dumped it. You're pumping this time around 500 million transactions, I'm guessing, on the Bitcoin network. Let's go.
Yeah, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I guess I won the first round dumping price. I'm going to dump price again. Instead, I'm going to pump. Let's all celebrate. Last week, the Bitcoin network, after 11 years, passed 500 million transactions. Now, if you believe it as a store value, great. But if you want to store that value, eventually you want to transfer that value into something, you still need to transact. Even if you want to hodl, eventually you have to transact. 500 million transactions. From the first transaction, Satoshi Nakamoto sent to his friend Hal Finney 10 Bitcoin, kind of as a test. That was the first transaction ever. The first commercial transaction was for 2 pizza pies. Someone paid 10,000 Bitcoin. Now, at the time, it was only about a couple of bucks. I think it was like $11. 10,000 Bitcoin. Today, that 10,000 Bitcoin is $100 million. Imagine being that guy who bought 2 pizzas for $100 million. But that just goes to show you, kudos to the network. It's tried, it's proven. 500 million is a lot of billions. It's 500 million. And it's only going to go onwards and onwards. Transactions, baby. That's where it's at. Use cases. Bitcoin.
Pulling up 5 seconds short of the mark. That's what they say about good sprinters. Look, it is a good point. There's something we talk about so often is that fidelity argument. Fidelity is something that's only proven through time and use. And the fact of the matter is the network is too new for most of the sort of establishment financial sectors to trust it. 500 million transactions, great psychological milestone. You can say, well, if there've been 500 million successfully so far, maybe the next 500 million will go just as well, and gives people that credibility in the network, which I think is a powerful thing.
Absolutely. Strength in numbers.
Bitcoin.
Not much argument there, so we'll move on to Asher with round two, dumping Ethereum in favor of Ethereum 2.0. Take it away.
So I'm not really dumping Ethereum per se, but just to more say that we see in the Ethereum network, we've seen in ETH had a wonderful boom since the start of the year. Speaking of coins that were doing exceptionally well, a quiet 90% up on the year so far to around that $230 mark now. It must be close to 100% by this point. And it's doing very well. Many analysts put out on the fact that there's a big rally, a boost around the anticipated Ethereum 2.0 output, which is scheduled to currently take place around July of this year. I mean, much like we talk about Bitcoin's halving as a major center point, a rallying point, Ethereum 2.0 is set to be a major point for investors in the network, taking the whole Ethereum project onto its next stage, building towards that global computing network network that was envisioned, back when Ethereum was kicked off. It's really, we're seeing by the growth in DeFi networks, miner accumulation. The whole network as a whole is growing massively at this stage, and kudos to them. Keep focusing on some of these key alts. They're seeing a great surge.
What's the likelihood of them actually making it to the end of this roadmap, though?
No, they're going to make it to the end.
Make it to the
There
roadmap.
have been
If a bunch
severe
of
delays,
people
have they not?
there have been also severe delays, and also there's a matter of developers building, because nobody wants to use Ethereum right now because they don't know what's going to happen when Ethereum
Right.
2.0 completely takes over, and they're like, all our work will just be gone. Like, I think Vitalik a couple of months ago came out saying, like, on a tweet, and he was basically like, I don't know, maybe build on some other blockchain and then move it over to Ethereum.
Vote of confidence.
But also, nice sense of honesty. Like, I like how honest they're being around Ethereum 2.0. I think
Good communication is clear. In this opaque industry, a little bit of transparency goes a
also,
long way.
I think the first time around, they were kind of surprised, sort of, that things worked out for them. If you heard Joe Lubin and Vitalik speaking over the last few months, that's been kind of, they're like, listen, we didn't think that this would be scalable, and it ended up being that this and this and this worked, and now we have to go into 2.0 because it's what we have to do. But just that for X, Y, and Z to work, but just that sheer honesty is quite nice.
Yeah, always interesting to compare that to Justin Sun and Tron.
Right.
Yeah, but what I do have to give Ethereum and Vitalik and the whole foundation credit for, similar to what Aram was saying, where even when it comes to they've had a lot of updates, a lot of stops along this roadmap.
Right.
But even on those little stepping points, even they're cautious. They're siding on the side of safety, which I like. If there's an issue, if there's a slight bug, they push off even those incremental upgrades because they recognize that there's a lot of enterprise built on the Ethereum network, a lot of enterprise, and they're trying to keep it safe. They're not trying to speed things up. It's kind of the opposite of what Facebook's philosophy. Facebook's philosophy was go fast and break things.
Move fast and break things.
Move fast and break things. Ethereum's doing the opposite. They're being careful, and I kind of like that about them.
Yeah, credit to them.
Excellent. Very good. Next up is Zaki, kind of biting the hand that feeds. You're dumping U.S.-centric crypto media in favor of media, I guess, in Nigeria.
This
Nigeria.
time he's ready.
Wait, let's go.
Everybody's always talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency from the U.S. perspective. I've been beating the same drum, or should I say djembe, for a long time. And I think that we always need to be bringing up the idea of cryptocurrency in Africa, specifically this week, cryptocurrency and Nigeria. So what's going on? Nigeria has the potential to really pop off as a crypto hub in the world. But there's been a major development, which is that President Donald Trump has banned immigration from Nigeria in response to terrorist activity in the country. So the thing is that this is going to majorly impact Nigeria and Africa as a whole's effort to become that tech hub, that cryptocurrency hub that they've been aspiring to. And this is in spite of Jack Dorsey, Twitter CEO's, hopes for the country, or for the continent, which have been majorly, which have majorly boosted the economy and tech investors' interest in this kind of thing. So we need to be aware of Nigeria's efforts and find a way to maintain cooperation with them while maintaining security.
Whoa. Brought that in right on time. Well done.
Yeah. This is like you said, you've been beating this drum for a while now, and I always come with the same response. I do agree with you here. Blockchain, one of its promises in cryptocurrencies, one of its promises is to help the unbanked to kind of give power to the little man who's been left out of the traditional financial systems, which have historically been Africa. Africa houses the most unbanked people or humans on Earth. And that's where cryptocurrencies has the most room to actually help. Whereas in America, in the developed Western world, cryptocurrencies, is an alternative.
Right.
I see in Africa cryptocurrencies as actually the sole option for a lot of these unbanked.
Except to that point, I'm actually going to quote Richard Els, the CEO of Electronium, of all people here, who in an interview with me said the unbanked, we all keep talking about the unbanked, but the unbanked don't understand that they're not banked. As in, it's not a point of reference that bugs them. It's not something they think about. It's our condescending brains up here that are like, hey, you guys are unbanked and you need cryptocurrency. So maybe
let us culture you.
Perhaps an incentive, right? The remittance market is an incentive. It's why when we speak about India, we know that that's huge, and that's the connection in which we speak. Perhaps there is just, when it comes to Africa, there isn't that entry point yet,
Also,
even though we see that it's
Also, an important point about that sort of cultural awareness. The djembe actually originates in Mali and only became popular. I did not. I did no such thing, and it only became popular in Ghana around the 90s when it started being produced commercially. So, just cultural and sensitive awareness, Zaki, critical for you.
What's
you know?
a Nigerian drum?
Yeah, I don't have the list at hand.
Oh, you don't have the list at hand.
I'm not saying I have the cultural
We're not
awareness.
pumping musical instruments. Oran, come on, take us home. We got.
We cut off that argument.
Yes. Where's the buzzer? We need it.
Yeah.
But you're dumping crime-related stories in favor
Yes.
of crypto for cannabis. Your minute begins.
Yeah,
now.
so we're Yona and I are on the bandwagon of use cases together here.
Nice.
And we're going for it. So, last week it was all crime-related stories, which was quite disappointing because I thought we left that. But anyway, so as the cannabis industry is actually now one of the fastest growing ones in the U.S. market, I'm speaking about the U.S. specifically here and everything that I'm going to say. So cryptocurrencies that are utility tokens, right, within the dispensary ecosystem could be very beneficial to transact or to do business with in general. So just to clear things up here, the cannabis industry boasts a predicted growth rate of 21% over the next 3 years, had a cumulative growth rate of 110% while providing over 250,000 jobs in the process. Now, the problem is with cannabis is that you can only pay cash, or most of the time these businesses operate on cash use because it is classified as a Schedule I drug. So people don't really know how to work with these businesses. Perhaps if there was a utility token to that effect within this particular ecosystem, people would have a better time dealing with these businesses.
Does that work legally though? Would that be allowed? Would that be seen as an acceptable
No, but
alternative
not necessarily,
transaction method?
but if that was perhaps brought up as
Okay.
a point of reference, hey, we can do a permissioned whatever, everybody would use this cryptocurrency. We know that it's one-to-one, and that way you, the bank or whatever, know who you're dealing with in this,
Okay,
and that
as
way
a
we're
means
not
of getting
only using
regulators on
cash.
board.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that gets overlooked also with this cash-only business is I actually remember we were reporting this like a long time ago, and we were dealing with these dispensaries, and because they're dealing with only cash, they're actually a huge target for robbery because these robbers, they know that they're only dealing with
Right.
cash.
Piles of
There's a lot of
cash.
cash.
Also-
It's usually mom and pop stores that don't have top-notch security, and they're easy targets, and that's why a lot of them are turning to crypto. And to answer your question, the reason that crypto is another avenue is because the banks don't want to deal with dispensaries because the banks are scared on a federal level. But if you're a cryptocurrency, you're not dealing with the banks. It's all localized. Once you have cryptocurrency, you're able to kind of circumvent the federal system that is in place, and so it does give you another avenue. And I do think it's a wonderful use case. Use cases unite.
I would just wonder if there would be, like, the federal government would find a way to crack down. You got to wonder when you're working in these
Right.
grey market areas, will that then be the excuse to crack down
But
on
you see, the gray
cryptocurrencies? I'm just playing
market.
devil's
Well,
advocate.
I know for sure. The gray area as a whole is confusing in and of itself, right? Because if you are in a state where you can run a dispensary legally, then in that state, clearly you're not, a drug or a
right.
crime-related drug. But on the federal level, when you're dealing with the bank, you're then
Precisely.
dealing it's a level 1 drug. So
Very
I mean.
All right.
Issues.
Excellent conversation. You win this round
Thank you.
for bringing us all an idea, and let's go start that business. And, that was Pump and Dump for this week. Did you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have opinions of your own? Do you want us to hear them? Do you want us to broadcast them? Send it to us on crypto. It's BLOCKTV News. At Twitter. That was Pump or Dump for today. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more blockchain and cryptocurrency news.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.